So Tim, how'd you become part of the Jesuits?
I grew up in a very Catholic family. My father, of Polish descent, but a U.S. citizen, my mother from Italy, and I studied at a Jesuit university. And it's there that I first met Jesuits. But at the age of 19, in my second year of university, I was invited to make the spiritual exercises of St. Ignatius Loyola, which had a deep impact on me. And then when I visited the Jesuit novitiate, where Jesuits are formed, I said, I feel a call to this. And so I would say I started at the age of 21 by filling out an application and entering the order. And 35 years later, I think it's been a good fit.
We want to explore Ignatius Loyola, yes, or Ignatius of Loyola. Give us his background as a young man.
Ignatius Loyola grew up in the Basque region of northern Spain. Loyola was the family name, the crest, and it was a noble family. So as a nobleman, he had noble pursuits. He dressed very fine. He liked the company of women. He liked the games of chivalry. So I think he was typical of that generation. He also knew he had to fight. Military duty was expected of noblemen. And it was a battle in Pamplona. I don't think he was a great soldier because he suffered a fairly bad wound. A cannonball went through a wall and hit him and fractured his leg. And that's what had brought an end to his military career. And that's really the cathartic moment in his life. So he heals from that injury. But if you've ever seen pictures of 16th century Europe, particularly northern Spain, the attire, the legs were like leggings. They were very tight. No, most men wouldn't wear those today, but they were very common then. And so the battle injury made his leg look disfigured. And he said, what woman would look at me with a leg like this? So he actually went to his doctors and said, break it and reset it so it looks good.
With no anesthesia, you can't imagine that, can you?
Now there's an English author, Margaret Silf, who's written on Ignatius, and she says, he's the only saint who's had cosmetic surgery, who's had work done. But yeah, he did that because he wanted to maintain his look. And it was in that second rehabilitation, he was bored, and he asked for something to read. And he read a book on the life of the saints and a book on the life of Christ. And it's not like he felt guilt. It sparked his imagination. He began to wonder, wow, what if I could be like this? What if I could be like one of these saints? And it was really the life of the imagination that brought him to his conversion.
As he went through his conversion, he then went on a pilgrimage, and that's such an interesting story, isn't it?
Yeah, he did go on pilgrimage. He had a hermit phase before the pilgrimage, which is significant. I mean, he became from really a man of chivalry to a homeless man. So when you see homeless people on the street, imagine you go from dressing like a Wall Street banker to a homeless person. But that was his way, because he felt the conversion called him to something like that. So he went to a place called Manresa, more in the Catalonia area of Spain, and he spent over 30 days in a cave, begging for food and water. And it's there that he had this mystical experience called his spiritual exercises. And probably one of the greatest things he's written are these spiritual exercises. And it was from there that he went on his first pilgrimage.
After the pilgrimage, there was this sense of a deeper learning, wasn't there? There was looking for an intellectual life.
Yes, well, he wanted then to go the pilgrimage to the Holy Land. And he went, but he was naive. He thought he had this profound conversion. He was going to go to Jerusalem and convert all Muslims. And the Franciscans said, they kind of put their arm around him and they said, go back to Europe. Almost as if to say, you're not ready for prime time. And so after that, he came to the realization he had to learn more.
Yeah. Where did he do that?
Well, he really wasn't well schooled. He couldn't go right to university because he was more into the life of chivalry. So he had to learn Latin because you really couldn't go to university without Latin. So there he was, a young man, 20s, 30s, sitting with grade school children, learning his Latin conjugations, and the children laughed at him. So, again, he felt a bit of a fool. But he started in Spain, and once he felt he had enough Latin to succeed in a university, he went to the University of Paris.
So interesting that the hermit life, the pilgrimage, the learning Latin with children it's all interesting formation around humility, isn't it?
That's humility is, I think, the hallmark of St. Ignatius's conversion. He knew that he couldn't be grand or great. he had to be humble if he was going to inspire anyone to follow him.
He ends up in Paris. He's studying with many other young men. What's the genesis of these guys forming together in a company?
Well, he had enough about him that intrigued people. You know, why they knew they would have known the family name or known that Loyola was a reputable family. And I think the most significant friendship he formed was Francis Xavier. And the Castle of Xavier is another beautiful place in northern Spain. And Xavier was also headstrong and proud, but I think he was intrigued by Ignatius. There was something about him. There's something about his character, his charisma, that attracted him. And so they began a very real friendship.
And how many gathered together in this group?
They gathered over time. There were about 9 first companions. So some of the earliest companions were Ignatius Loyola, Francis Xavier, the Frenchman Peter Faber. Faber was actually a priest, so they had already an ordained priest among their midst. Another Spaniard, Diego Lainez. So these were some of the first group of 9 who came together and realized that maybe there was something more than a fraternity or a friendship here.
So they form a company. They have to get this company registered, let's say. What do they do?
Well, it took them a long time. So when you look at how much time it takes to start up a company from the entrepreneurial stage to filing articles of incorporation took a number of years. So first they decided to take religious vows, and they did that in Paris. They went to Hill Montmartre. So they went up there, the Chapel of Saint Denis, and there on August 15th, they took their first vows. And I think Ignatius had his comeuppance because he really wanted to go back to the Holy Land. I think there was a part of him that wanted to say to the Franciscans, I'm ready now. And so the port to Jerusalem was Venice. So they went to Venice. But a number of factors, civil infractions, etc., prevented their journey. So they were on the streets of Venice for a year. And something significant happened. Ignatius said, well, we're not just going to sit here and wait. Let's go to the hospitals, let's go to the poorer neighborhoods, and let's minister to people. So in a sense, ministry found them despite what they were looking for.
One of the other keys about the Jesuits was this idea of being ready to go. And the story of Francis Xavier is interesting in that, isn't it?
Yeah, Francis Xavier is more famous than St. Ignatius Loyola. As a matter of fact, Francis Xavier fast-tracked Ignatius's canonization. So Ignatius, even though he founded the order, ran on Francis' coattails. So there was only a few of them. They were in a neighborhood in Rome, and there was another Spaniard, Bobadilla, who was supposed to go to the east, which would have been India. Bobadilla got sick, and so the two good friends decided, no, I think Xavier should go. And I suppose the rest is history. But, you know, Xavier boarded a boat with his black cassock. He had his Bible, his prayer books, some provisions, a crucifix. That was it. And there was a group of them that would have gone, and it would have been a long journey by sea to India, because then there was no Suez Canal. There was the rites of passage we have now. And there he shows up on the eastern banks of the Indian shore and brings the gospel of Jesus Christ.
This series is focused on to the ends of the earth, and because of the work of Francis Xavier and all those who followed him, we have geographically got to the ends of the earth from a faith perspective. But what does that phrase mean for you today, to the ends of the earth?
Well, sometimes we believe that the true missionary activity is not to find people who've never heard of Christ, but to go to the places where people have known and forgotten or have no use for the gospel. And often that's even in our own neighborhoods or back in our own communities. So the current Pope, Pope Francis, is a Jesuit, and he talks about going to the margins or going to the peripheries. Sometimes those are within our own societies, within our own families.
Yeah. And finally, again, the name of the series is Jesus the Game Changer. If I said, what is Jesus the Game Changer as a phrase, what does that mean for you?
Well, Jesus changed the course of history, changed time. I mean, there is no greater game changer in the world, but how he did it is what I love. Even if you don't believe in God, the story of Jesus Christ can change your life. That we believe him to be God, the Son of God, but just his own witness on this earth can change your life. And when I think of, I've had the opportunity to travel much of the world and see the face of Jesus in so many cultures, in so many people, and in the hearts of people, to see how alive that faith is, to say, that cannot be of human means. That can only come from God.